You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves Postcast, part of the all-new Locked On Sports Atlanta. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after what was a frustrating day for the Atlanta Braves, a real clunker in Game 3 of the National League Division Series, a 9-1 loss to the Philadelphia Phillies, who now move ahead 2-1 and force the Braves into a place that they didn't find themselves at all in the postseason in 2021, and that is facing elimination. Got a lot to talk about on this episode of the show, so as always, I want to remind you to make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube and to Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcast. Jake, this was a tough one to watch, and I think that we were all excited about the return of Spencer Strider, who had been so good head-to-head against the Philadelphia Phillies, but that was a club that apparently had his number in Game 3 on Friday at Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, I was excited about it. I thought it was the right move and the right decision if you felt like he was good to go. Unfortunately, just maybe ran out of a little gas there, but it didn't matter because the offense only scored one run in the end as well. So they certainly weren't doing their job either on what was a really ugly game.
These are the things that didn't add up for the Braves. You don't get the pitching performance you need. Well, that's frustrating. You don't get the runs you need. Well, that's kind of a double whammy because you got to have one or the other typically, and usually both if you want to win games. And the Braves have typically been able to do that in terms of, we're just winning series. That's what this club has done, been resilient all year long. They tied this division series up. They sent it back to Philadelphia, knowing that they were going to be going against a big game pitcher, a tough pitcher, one of the best in the National League in Aaron Nola, and he certainly had the Braves number on this day as well. Let's get into the particulars of Game 3 as the Phillies take a 2-1 lead in the NLDS. Braves just 1 run on 6 hits, an error, and 8 men left on base. Phillies 9 runs, 8 hits, a couple of errors, 3 men left aboard for them. Aaron Nola picks up the win with 6 innings of 1-run ball. Spencer Strider unable to escape the 3rd inning. He was charged with 5 earned runs. He takes a loss. No save in a game that lasted 3 hours, 16 minutes, and a crowd of over 45,000 filed into Citizens Bank Park to see this one. It was a sellout crowd. It was their first postseason game in Philadelphia in 11 years. The last time they had one of these things, it was a loss. Roy Halladay was on the mound. Ryan Howard was blowing out his Achilles. Jake, I would say that as far as things that have happened since the last time the Phillies were in October, they didn't want to think about what had gone on since then. They're just concentrating on this opportunity they have right now. And with their play on Friday, they have put themselves in quite the position. I think we call it the driver's seat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and the Braves are very familiar with that position because I think it's a position they were in last year, a team not a lot of many people expected anything from, an 88-win team. I believe they're an 87-win team, but they're hot at the right time. They got a lot of confidence, as you said, playing in front of a crowd who was very loud and energetic. I mean, Truist Park is as well, but obviously that fan base hasn't seen that in a long time. So they were pumped up, ready to go, and you really felt like maybe if the Braves punched first in this one, they could quiet the crowd down and maybe settle things in, but they had an opportunity in the first, couldn't get it, and the Phillies did, and it just kind of snowballed on them from there.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Spencer Strider looked so good the first couple of innings. You felt like all the pieces were there, and you knew he wasn't going to go deep into this game. I think, if you're listening to Brian Snitker's comments, while Spencer Strider might have wanted to go out there and run through a brick wall and throw 9 innings, hadn't been on the mound in quite a little while. It just wasn't going to work out that way for him today. He did not escape the 3rd. 2 1/3 innings, 5 earned runs, just 3 hits, couple of walks, but a big home run by Rhys Hoskins really sealed his fate.
Yeah, that was, obviously the key in the 3rd inning, and, some big at-bats in there before that, for sure. Some long at-bats, Segura, Stott, and you saw the velocity kind of tick down a little bit. He actually picked it back up in that Stott at-bat, but that was just such a deflating at-bat. And then, first pitch to Rhys Hoskins was, 93 right down the middle. And Hoskins did what most hitters are going to do with that pitch and absolutely destroyed it. And kind of felt like that was the game there. And it was unfortunate. Strider looked like, Strider in those first 2 innings and really just ran through that lineup. But, I think just the long at bats, obviously not pitching in nearly a month, perhaps caught up with him a little bit there in that 3rd inning and just wasn't as sharp as we saw him in those first 2.
No, he wasn't. And I feel like the big thing in that at bat, or the big part of that inning was that Bryson Stott at bat. The 4-pitch walk to Brandon Marsh, yes, that's troublesome. The error on the pickoff attempt, yeah, that kind of put him against the ropes. But Stott really wasn't, able to get on the Spencer Strider fastball, which was down a tick or two in that 3rd inning. But when he made the choice to go with the slider. That's when Stott was able to get his bat wrapped around one of those, rip it into right field for a double, put the Phillies on the board. You intentionally walk Kyle Schwarber. And then, as you mentioned, the Rhys Hoskins home run absolutely crushed. 93.8 miles an hour on that fastball, tied for the slowest four-seamer that Spencer Strider has thrown in his career. He did say after the game it didn't feel any different, and he said if you throw it right there, a lot of times, whether it's 91 or 101, the hitters are going to do what they're going to do, and that's exactly what Rhys Hoskins did, and that was make some serious contact for that big home run to put the Phillies up at that point by a 4-0 score. But would you believe that, Jake, from the end of the Stott at bat, which was a 9-pitch at bat, to the time that Bryce Harper left the yard after greeting Dylan Lee, who was first out of the bullpen, there was a span of 4 pitches thrown from whence it went from a 0-0 game to a 6-0 Phillies lead. That's how quick, how sudden it can happen at Citizens Bank Park.
And we were used to seeing that from the Braves offense. I mean, we've seen the Braves put up huge cricket numbers in just a matter of mere pitches because they have that power. And, it's the one thing that really scares you about that Phillies lineup. And we talked about going into it. They have power as well up and down their lineup, and they can flip a game very quickly. And it's exactly what you saw. And, the Braves offense had chances in this game. And it's like they were looking for that big 2 or 3 run homer. They had a couple innings where they had 2 on base and some of their big boppers up. And you felt like, okay, they get a hold of one, we're right back in this game. But they didn't. The Phillies did. I mean, it's very similar to game 1. They got the big hits. They got the good pitching. Braves did not. And as a result, they're down in the series.
And it was that 6-run inning that put the Phillies in, as I mentioned, the driver's seat. The Braves, meanwhile, just 1 run against Aaron Nola. It was unearned thanks to Rhys Hoskins dropping a throw at first base, which left the door open for Michael Harris to come through with an RBI single. But, other than that, there really wasn't much to talk about when it came to the Braves offense. And that's just the kind of day and the kind of game that Aaron Nola needed, was to get a big lead and be able to pitch his game. And 6 innings, only 6 strikeouts in this one. But the Braves, every time they seemed to get something going, Aaron Nola was able to squash it out, get a big out that he needed, and cruise right on to another inning. And he wasn't really having to sweat it too much after that first inning, in which, as you mentioned, the Braves, it seemed like might get a little bit of something brewing. But when you give up a 6 spot, that certainly changes the momentum of the game, because unless you start chipping away immediately, it can get late early in this kind of game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, when you don't get anything in that first inning and then really didn't have another big threat until the 6th inning. They had a 1-out double in the 4th, but nothing of that. Then in the 6th inning, you had a leadoff double, a walk, 2 on, nobody out with Riley coming up. And you felt like, okay, this is maybe the point. You're going to get back in this game. It's right here, the middle of your order, 2 on, nobody out. They end up getting 1 on that, which is actually gifted because of the Phillies defense, who has really helped out the Braves a lot in this game, and they still couldn't do much with it. But just not able to put up that crooked number like we talked about. And that's what the Braves offense has been so good at doing throughout the year, is putting up that crooked number. And we just didn't get it in this game. We've got it in, a couple of innings in the first 2 games, but couldn't get it done here. And I mentioned Riley. I mean, it's been a struggle for him in this series. It's really been a struggle for the first couple of months, but it just hasn't been able to get a big hit from your MVP candidate.
No, he is not. And Dansby Swanson's been cold, but the bottom of the Braves order, it's like somebody turned the lights off and locked those guys out here in the postseason. There's just not been anything going on in, I think, those bottom 3 or 4 spots at all. A couple of hits here or there, but a lot of offers for those guys down there. And of course, that, there's lineup scrutiny, as there will be and should be in the postseason, because you're thinking about, sometimes as a manager, you're going to play a hunch. You're going to give this guy an opportunity against a pitcher in a matchup that you think might favor him. And if it works out, you look like a genius. When it doesn't work out, it looks like you pushed the wrong buttons. But I don't know what buttons anybody could push today against Aaron Nola and the Phillies bullpen to be able to turn this one around once the Braves went down by a 6-0 score. That, I think, is really the story of this game in a nutshell. I was talking about the Phillies postseason and the last time that they won a game. Our old friend Cole Hamels was the winning pitcher on October 4th, 2011. So the postseason drought for the Philadelphia Phillies has ended at just over 11 years and a week, almost 2, since the last time they picked up a postseason win. They did that in game 1, and now they've done one here at home, I should say, for the first time since 2011. And this is just, I think, for the Phillies, it's a lot about what you were saying earlier, Jake, in terms of the Phillies at an 87-win team are probably not the juggernaut that people were looking for, much like the Atlanta Braves a year ago. But now they are 1 win away from advancing in a second consecutive postseason series and punching their ticket to the NLCS for the first time in well over a decade.
They are. I mean, they're a good team. I mean, you can't look at the record, and we talked about it going in. When you got Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola at the top of your rotation, and both of those guys were really good. I mean, Wheeler was cruising until he hit Acuna in the other game. I think that kind of threw him off. But both of those guys really good. Their bullpen is obviously improved. Their lineup, as we talked about, very powerful up and down. I mean, Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto, Bohm, Segura even. Those guys can hit. I mean, they're a deep lineup. This is a good team. They obviously struggled out of the gate, much like the Braves did, and kind of got hot late. So, I mean, I know Braves fans, I've heard some people say that this is embarrassing if they lose to the Phillies. It's not embarrassing. The Phillies are a good team. I still think the Braves are better if they play their game, but Max Fried, Spencer Strider, your two best pitchers all year long, have gotten blown up in this series. And that right there is the difference.
Yeah, it really is. And I know that a lot of folks were like, well, the Braves, so the layoff is what's hurting them. Well, they had 4 days off last year. They had 5 days off this year. And I don't think there's any scenario in which I would want to go into the wild card series with a sick Max Fried and Spencer Strider not available. So if that's the scenario we were talking about, it doesn't look too much altogether different than what could have gone wrong in this series, perhaps having gone wrong a series sooner. But either way, the schedule's been made, the lineups have been set, or the playoff bracket has been set, and the Braves and the Phillies, who know each other extremely well. We talked about early in this series, no secrets between these two teams after 19 meetings in the regular season. Well, this continues to be a hotly contested series between these two teams, and that has been, I think, what we all expected when these two teams met here in October. And just knowing that for Philadelphia, this has been a long time coming.
It has been. And I mean, look, kudos to them and their fan base and getting it done. I mean, again, the Braves know what it feels like to get hot at the right time and go on a run and have that surge of confidence. And that's exactly what you're seeing in this Phillies team. And you knew when the Braves lost game 1 with Max Fried on the mound, it was going to be a battle. And you kind of felt like it was going to have to go 5 games if the Braves were going to win it, because you knew best case scenario, or not best case, but you knew with Wheeler and Nola coming, it's going to be tough to win both of those games. So you hope you split those. And then you got, 2 of your veterans ready to go in games 4 and 5. You're going to need them to pitch better because, like I said, bottom line, the Braves in games 1 and 3 just have not pitched like they're capable.
No, they have not. So let's talk about game number 4. It's coming up after I tell you about betonline.net, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for lines and games and odds, reviews and news of every league, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. Head to betonline.net today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action that's happening at BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, we know it's going to be starting on Saturday afternoon at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. It's going to be Charlie Morton on the mound for Atlanta, and it's going to be a bullpen game started by Noah Syndergaard for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, this is not the same Noah Syndergaard of years past when he was with the New York Mets throwing triple digits and being one of the great strikeout pitchers in baseball. A little bit different this time around, but he's not going to be asked to go out there and carry the whole team on his back either. So it'll be interesting to see if the Braves offense could maybe find a way to cash in on a day in which the Phillies are going to have to utilize some pitchers to get to their better relievers at the back end of their bullpen. Now, the Braves pen, I think, is pretty rested. Jake Odorizzi did a lot of work for Atlanta today to help pick up that slack. Jesse Chavez came in late. I know the Phillies added on 3 runs late in the game. It kind of made it look worse than it was, but it was 6-1 for most of the afternoon. But now you look at Charlie Morton, Jake, and you're expecting him to be the guy that he has been in the postseason, and particularly in elimination games. He is unbeaten in 5 of those in his career with an ERA well under 1, but he did not beat the Phillies in 5 starts this year. So it's going to be interesting to see which Charlie Morton shows up and what the Braves are going to get as they face elimination for the first time in the postseason since 2020.
And the one thing that really worries you about this matchup is Charlie Morton has struggled giving up home runs this year. And we talked about how powerful that Phillies lineup is. But look, as harsh as I've been on Morton in the year that he's had and the ups and downs, I still feel very comfortable with him in this spot. He's a veteran pitcher. He's been very good in the postseason. He has dominant strikeout type stuff. He's capable of going out there and giving you 5 really good innings, which is honestly what you're looking for, because as you said, if there's one silver lining from this game is that the Braves got blown out so badly that they didn't have to use any of their best bullpen arms. So they're ready to go. If Charlie can give you 5 solid innings and hopefully the offense can get going, you mentioned, the bottom of the order, 7, 8, 9 hitters have 1 hit in this series. And that came tonight from Orlando Arcia with a pinch hit. So the this offense all year long, it's been 1 through 9, and it's really been that bottom of the order that's really made the difference. And what I thought would be the difference in this series was the depth of their lineup. That hasn't shown up so far. Mentioned Riley really struggling in the middle of the lineup. Those guys got to get going. If you can't get it going in a bullpen game from the Phillies, then, your season's going to be over. So hopefully Morton's got his good stuff, can give you 5 innings, turn it over to that bullpen. Hopefully the offense can get going, put up a big number, and even this series up.
Yep, they're going to need a good start from Charlie Morton to get it going. And, of course, the offense is going to have to wake up big time, as you just said. Game 4 Saturday afternoon, 2:07 p.m. Eastern time, the first pitch at Citizens Bank Park. It's Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves, 9-6 during the season, a 4.34 ERA, 200-plus strikeouts for him, 0-1 with a 5.47 ERA in his 5 starts against the Philadelphia Phillies head-to-head. But as I mentioned, he's been dynamite in the postseason before. He's done it throughout his long career, and as a veteran starting this potential elimination game for Atlanta, trying to keep the season alive and the series alive and send it back to Atlanta on Sunday. He's the kind of pitcher that you like being able to hold in reserve, even if Game 3 did not go the Braves' way and the way they wanted to with the return of Spencer Strider. That'll wrap things up here on the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and subscribe to Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcasts. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. Once again, the bad news, Braves drop it 9-1 to the Phillies in Game 3. They trail the NLDS 2-1 heading into Game 4 on Saturday. We'll be back with you after that game right here on the Braves Postcast. And until then, so long, everyone.